Next we have Paul Carpich from Springville, and after Mr. Carpich is Doreen Tillman from Montrose. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening. My name is Paul Carpich, P-A-U-L, K-A-R-P-I-C-H. I live at 729 Fitch, F-I-T-C-H, Hill Road, Springville, PA, 18844, and I live in Dimmock Township. I moved to Pennsylvania about 30 years ago, came from a metropolitan area, and I came here to raise a family and to enjoy the country. And it's really been a great place to live, great neighbors, and I have been really no complaints. Until the compressor, I live 1,200 yards, that's 12 football fields, from the Williams compressor station that's in the Lathrop unit. And ever since that station went online, it's been a constant noise, and for me, I'm fortunate, an occasional smell. A constant noise is I can lay in bed at night and I can hear a motor running. I think there's trucks coming up to the driveway, or it's just constant. I called and complained to Williams many times, and I asked him, what's the requirements for the noise level? And he told me it was 55 decibels. I says, okay, what's 55 decibels like? He says, well, it's like a light conversation or a refrigerator. And I told him, well, I got people in a refrigerator in my bedroom all the time. It never stops. Sunday morning, I was going out early in the morning. I was sitting down, tying my shoes, and the refrigerator went on, and I could hear the compressor station above the refrigerator. You walk out my front door, and you can hear it. And you want to come, I've called Williams, and I do have an appointment with Williams that's supposed to come to my house on the 14th of December and talk about it. And that's fine. I'd like to have that noise stop. I'd like to have also the venting controlled. The venting is a noise like if you have an air compressor tank and you've winged the valve open and it roars. Some days it lasts for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. One night in early spring at 2:27 in the morning, I remember it because I woke up and I looked at the clock. It sounded like I had a jet engine in my front yard. It was so loud, the windows were shaking, and that noise went on for about an hour and 20 minutes. And I called, and then there was the smell. There's a very pungent odor. When I do get a smell, it's very pungent, and it just kind of chokes you for a second. I'm kind of fortunate. Some of my neighbors have it on a regular basis. I have a neighbor up there. Her son has nosebleeds and sore throats, and so it's disturbed. That was all very disturbing. I called the following day after the incident. I called Williams, and they did call me back. Whenever I call them, they call me back. And he said that incident that night, they're investigating. I never got a complete answer on it. They're investigating is they had a power failure at the plant. Backup emergency power did not come on. When that happened, all the valves, compressing gas, vented. And all those venting went on for, as I said, about an hour and a half. And I was scared to death that somebody was going to go outside and strike a match and it'd be over. Because the odor was that bad, it was that, and I was told that the Springville Fire Department was put on call, and I don't know what they were going to do when you have a massive explosion, because it would have been monumental. I had neighbors come up the road down below from me, asking me what's going on, so it was pretty shocking. I asked them if they had an emergency plan to notify neighbors, and then they never got back to me on any kind of emergency plan. So all this leads me to believe that I have a concern. My property where I sit, when I walk out my back door, I can see Gary Shields' property where the compressor station is going. I can see about 90% of his property. I'm on the opposite hill. And I'm concerned that that station, with the Williams station, the noise is going to be amplified. And I'm concerned about my property values. I'd love to leave my property to my kids.
30 seconds.
All right, and it's just, I'd like to, I'm not against advancement, improvement. I just like to have it controlled properly. And the environment means a lot to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Doreen Tillman from Montrose, after Doreen is Julie Sotner from Montrose. Is Doreen here? Doreen Tillman? Okay. Julie Sotner? Is Julie here? No? Okay. Iona Luce from Montrose? Then after Miss Luce is Victoria Switzer. See? Iona? No? Okay. Victoria Switzer? No. Okay, Amy Payne from Montrose. Amy? And then after Amy Payne is Gerard Donatachi.
My name's Amy Payne,
Step closer to the mic, there you go.
Amypayne. My address is 11265 SR 706, Montrose, PA. I live in Jessup Township. I was born in Susquehanna County and have lived here my entire life. I am here today to advocate for the health, safety, and welfare of my 2 young children and all the children of Susquehanna County. I have had the privilege of taking for granted the clean, safe air that living in this rural environment has provided for all of us. I am disappointed that the children of Susquehanna County will not know the same standard of clean air. I have several issues and questions that I would like to address this evening. The first and most critical are the emissions from these compressor stations. These emissions contain many toxic compounds, including VOCs, nitric oxide, sulfur dioxides, and methane. These emissions are a direct threat to the health of nearby neighbors and their children. In examining the expected air pollutants from the Shields compressor station, I noticed that the total amounts of some of these pollutants are very close to the major source threshold limits. While they meet DEP standards, it appears to me that Laser is not interested in going above and beyond to protect the air quality around the area that the station is in. It appears to me that they are just doing the bare minimum to meet these standards, which does not leave very much room for human error, mechanical errors, or emergency happenings. Question number 1. Does DEP offer or provide any incentives to companies such as Laser to use best technologies such as electric engines, BTEX eliminators, or other technologies from the EPA's Natural Gas STAR program, which would reduce the volume of these toxic emissions and allow room for malfunctions or emergency situations where excessive emissions may be released? Question number 2. Are the penalties and fines for failing to meet these threshold limits enough to prevent companies from ignoring the regulations once the facilities are operational? Question 3. Will this facility be monitored on a continuous basis to make sure that it complies with what is in the proposed plans? If so, I would like to see a copy of the proposed monitoring plans. Our children should not be exposed to toxic emissions and noxious odors without a way to verify the contents of the emissions and the volume of emissions being released at any specific time. Testing and verifying after an incident or reported illness does not do our families or our children justice. I would suggest that DEP offer incentives to the companies that will go above and beyond the minimum requirements and use the newest and the best available technologies. Most of us in this county are good neighbors, and I ask that if these companies will not do their best to be a good neighbor and reduce the emissions, then they be made to do so. The second and third issues that I have with the compressor station are the noxious odors emitted and the constant noise. I am concerned that my children and other children will no longer want to play outside if they have to smell strong, noxious odors and hear a constant noise in the background. As we know, physical exercise and sunlight is essential for good health. These facilities and the emissions, noise, and odors may discourage adults and children from spending time outdoors. Question 4. Does DEP take a comprehensive view of the effects that these facilities have on the quality of life of the residents, including the physical, psychological, and social effects that they may produce due to the pollution, noise, and odors produced by these facilities? In closing, I implore the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection to slow down the rush to permit all these natural gas facilities. Please take the appropriate amount of time to thoroughly review and examine each one and to allow public comments and hearings on each compressor station. before they are approved. It is not only the environment that can suffer, but also the residents near and around these facilities, whose safety, health, welfare, and quality of life are at risk. Thank you for holding this hearing and listening to my testimony.
Thank you, ma'am. Next we have Gerard Donatachi, and after him is Lisa Toma from Springville, Pennsylvania. Gerard here, Mr. Donatachi? Okay. How about Lisa Toma? Is Lisa around?
I have a question. If people are not here, can somebody else go in their place?
No, we're going to have to keep the moving along. We're going to go down the list as soon as we can. Jennifer Clifford from Montrose, Pennsylvania. Jennifer here? Okay, hang on one second now. We have a Chevy Cobalt LS license plate H543183. I believe your lights are on, is that it?
Yes.
Lights are on.
That's right, sorry.
Chevy Cobalt H5Y, 3183. Okay, it's, Jennifer?
It's parked in the back,
Parked in the back.
back row, doors, you're still carrying, that's still on.
Okay, Jennifer, go ahead.
Jennifer Clifford, JENNIFERCLIFFORD. My address is 317 Prospect Street, Montrose. Thank you very much for holding this hearing. Most likely everyone in this room has experienced a defining moment when you knew you had to get involved with the natural gas controversy. Outside this room, hundreds, maybe thousands, are finding that cut-off supply of water to the Dimock residents is their defining moment. What I'm referring to is the moment when your role changes, when you're upset enough by pollution of the environment to own the problem, to make it yours to solve. I hope that after hearing testimony today, that this will be the DEP's defining moment. Now is the time to move away from the gas industry's lowest common denominators, pollution and the denial of responsibility for causing it. Violations are already egregious. I became aware firsthand of air quality issues during a visit to a local compressor station. Within 15 minutes of standing upwind and across the street from the compressor station, some of us developed headaches and had metallic, sweet tastes in our mouths from breathing the air surrounding the station. The VOCs and hazardous pollutants being released from compressor station tanks and engines directly into the air contain cytotoxins, genotoxins, and carcinogens. A little research easily uncovers a trove of EPA documents indicating it's fully aware of the pollution issues related to compressor stations, as is the industry. The EPA knows how to control the pollution. One document, called Methane to Market, a PowerPoint presentation from a workshop co-sponsored by the EPA in 2008, made the case that compressor station emissions were not only controllable, but the capture of valuable gases gave controls a payback of less than 2 years, and with profit after that. I'll send you the link. Why doesn't the DEP require the gas companies to make this profitable move? It's vital to note these gas-related situations are unlike concentrated industrial pollution. What we have is widely dispersed pollution with varying degrees of seriousness occurring over an extended period of time. The pollution must be accounted for cumulatively. Cumulative impacts are both immediate, as I can attest to, and long-term. What is the DEP's plan not to mitigate, but to prevent these emissions that do not belong in the human environment? As Methane to Market states, it's estimated that methane emissions from compressors account for about 1/4 of all methane emissions from the natural gas industry. What do you recommend we do to maintain our health in the face of direct continuous pollution? My family has been on our farm for 7 generations now, and we're very concerned about our new environment. What will the DEP do to support and protect the environment and public health and welfare? I suggest the following. Compressor station source points of pollution must be considered collectively. DEP needs to create a comprehensive plan regarding compressor stations in Pennsylvania. All potential pollution points, every compressor station, every well site, all pipelines must be fully and continually monitored with all results made public in real time. The PA DEP is a partner of airnow.gov, which publishes hourly and real-time pollution monitoring already. Take baseline air samples, making air samples and results available free of charge to residents in areas where there is gas drilling, making the results public. All available technology and best practices must be required, employed, and monitored with defined and enforced compliance and penalties. If nothing else, please hear this. We are not a sacrifice zone. We are an area where you must act swiftly to stem the dangers. The FLIR images you haven't seen because we aren't using technology here are a proverbial smoking gun. These topics are fundamental social and environmental justice issues. I implore you to protect us and the environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next we have Brett Jennings, Director of the Halstead Great Bend Joint Sewer Authority. Mr. Jennings? And then after Mr. Jennings is John Trowell of Sonestown, Pennsylvania. Okay. After him will be Mark Sherling from Greenacton, Pennsylvania. Mr. Jennings, go ahead.
On a moonlit or a cold moonlit winter night, when I drive home to Great Bend, there's a smoky layer over the borough. Why does this temperature inversion concern me now? My fear is the lethal dose low. This is where the first individual of a population will die from exposure to that temperature inversion. They'll have more pollutants in it. There's a history of topographic, climate, and physical processes in the atmosphere that concentrate airborne pollutants. Yellowstone National Park has experienced lethal effects of temperature inversions since 1899, with one of the more recent being in March of 2004, where 5 buffalo died of hydrogen sulfide exposure from a temperature inversion. In December of 1952, in London, England, there were 4,000 excess deaths for the week ending 13 December 1952, and an additional 8,000 deaths, or excess deaths, over the next 2.5 months. This period was known as the Great Smog. Also from the 1870s through the 1890s, London recorded similar events. In our small, narrow valleys in Susquehanna County, how much will it take to reach the lethal dose low? Will increase emissions from this compression station added with others now in use or in the future reach the lethal dose low or higher? Will the coroner have to leave Great Bend Borough for Dimmock or other areas to collect remains on the weekend or evening when family or friends find corpses waiting for them? During the Public Utility Commission hearings, it's been stated before, they weren't planning on, in their statements at that hearing, to have other compression stations. Were they lying intentionally? If they were, that's a crime. With the concentration of these emissions in the temperature inversion zone, what happens if an ignition source meets the lower explosion level, but hasn't yet reached the upper explosion level? I knew through military training. It's a fuel air explosion at altitude. The shock wave is what will kill you, instead of suffocating in that cloud. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Schmerling?
That's Mark Schmerling.
Schmerling, thank you.
Mark
And
with
this, after Mr. Schmerling is Vince Renata. Go ahead.
It's Mark with a K, and Schmerling is SCHMERLING. My address is P.O. Box 753 in Bryn Athyn, Pennsylvania. Actually, I live in Upper Moreland Township, Montgomery County. I'm a documentary environmental photographer. That means I get to meet people who are affected by the fallout of fossil fuel extraction industries, fossil fuel extractive industries. Basically, there's no difference between coal, oil, and natural gas. They're all the same players. In my travels, I've met Pam Judy. Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to display photographs in here. I'll try to have them in the room down the hall after I'm done speaking. But I met Pam Judy and photographed her in front of a compressor station right across her property line, off her property line in Greene County, southwest Pennsylvania. Pam, her husband, her son and daughter, young adult son and daughter, all were suffering from headaches, nausea. This is from the compressor station that went in there in 2008, and that's when their symptoms began. Pam was found to have phenol and benzene in her blood. Southern Bedford County, Clearville, Sandy McDaniel, another person I met, extreme sickness and disability from fumes coming off a compressor station near Clearville, near where she lived, right above her farm. Lake Lynn, Fayette County, about 5 miles north of the West Virginia line. Phyllis Carr, her daughter Jeannie, and her grandchildren all have suffered extreme discomfort, sickness, respiratory difficulties. Her 2 young grandsons, lesions in their throats and noses from playing outside like normal kids do, from a compressor station uphill from them. Nobody's doing anything about this, folks. And these are only a few of the people involved. Now, I have a question. Has anyone heard of a solar energy spill, a wind energy spill? Raise your hand if you have, I'd like to know. Now, what kind of people would let this happen to other human beings and say, well, we're doing the best we can, or we don't have the money to do this? Well, I'll tell you why they don't have the money to do this and why no kind of regulations or enforcement will work. Because if this industry and any other fossil fuel industry complied with every regulation, if you had the strictest regulations out there so that not a drop of pollution would come out, if you had peach cobbler and lemonade coming out of these compressor stations, it would not hide the fact that these industries pollute. They're after they don't care about the fuel, they don't care about the material. It's a way for them to get a lot of money in a short time and not care about the consequences. And because if every regulation, the stiffest regulations, were employed and enforced, it would just prove that renewable energy is cheaper, economically cheaper than any kind of fossil fuel extracted energy. Now, what kind of people would do this? If you want to know the kind of people who would do this, the CEOs of these industries, go to Google or look in the dictionary and look up the word psychopath. These people are psychopaths. They will not do the right thing. They will not do the right thing unless, and probably not, the only thing that would put them in their place is the fear of going to prison. Fines are just pay to play. In Pennsylvania and a lot of other states, it's simply pay to play. And unfortunately, DEP, in spite of all the people there who want to do a good job, is influenced by our sham so-called governor who was put in place by the Koch brothers, by the gas industry. So nothing will change until this industry is not allowed to operate here. Nothing will change. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next we have Vince Granada. Is Mr. Granada here tonight? Okay, next we have Mr. Frost Tom. Is that you, sir? Okay. After Mr. Tom, we have Jay Sweeney from Dalton, Pennsylvania. Thank you.
I'm Tom Frost
Thank you.
from Lennoxville. Address is 325 Cameron Hill Road, Nicholson. I didn't go to the infamous Dimmock Township meeting last night because I prefer to stay in my own part of the county. But then I saw the Enough Already crowd licking their chops on YouTube about how they won that meeting. It showed one of them saying, "Keep your Binghamton water out of our township and keep your Lackawanna County water out of Susquehanna County and everything else like that. Well, that was what made me decide to come to this meeting. I'm one of those so-called city carpetbaggers that enough already Doug was insulting for wanting my neighbors 15 miles west of me in Dimmock to have water. I'm a city carpetbagger who lives on a 124-acre farm 2 miles north of Lennoxville, to be exact, that my dad bought in '67, and the water on it is still very good. I just came here from delivering water to Dimmock from that farm. I also brought a lump of coal for this meeting to present to Cabot, DEP, and Enough Already. Cabot, DEP, and Enough Already have not been good. Therefore, why should I take a lower price for the gas from my Southwestern Energy well in Lennoxville by having Cabot, DEP, and Enough Already flood the market with the gas from a compressor station that's going to only accommodate people in a different part of the county than me, a part of the county where they want to busybody against their neighbors having water. In short, if Cabot and its puppets, the DEP and Enough Already, don't want outside Dimmock Township water coming into Dimmock Township, then I ask them to keep Dimmock Township gas in Dimmock Township and off my market. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We have Jay Sweeney from Dalton. Is Mr. Sweeney here? Jay Sweeney? Okay, and Aaron Price from Windsor, New York. Right, and after that will be Susan Dorsey.
Not here.
Not here? After that will be Chris Lacey from Binghamton, New York. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Aaron Price, Aaron Price, Windsor, New York, 13865. How well a pipeline or compressor station functions depends not only on regulations, but also on the quality and attitude of the company involved. In Windsor, New York, Laser worked hard to make a compressor station that the neighbors wouldn't see, wouldn't smell, wouldn't hear. Laser succeeded. The neighbors I have talked with are happy, and the town of Windsor is satisfied with Laser and its operations. Just like in Windsor, the compressor station in Dimmock will have mufflers to muffle noise. Just like in Windsor, the facility will run on natural gas, not diesel, for cleaner emissions. And the safety systems in place will inform the station's operators if anything needs attention. Rigorous regulations and a commitment to excellence equals safety. The town of Windsor's experience with Laser is positive. I ask the DEP to look to Windsor and let this project move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.